Welcome to the Scaling Startups podcast. I'm your host, Irene Ortiz-Glass. Founders are visionaries who are pushing boundaries and bringing the non-existent to life. It's challenging and also very exciting at the same time. But at some point, this vision requires people, process, and structure. The Scaling Startups podcast seeks to explore the truth behind what it takes to scale startups, leaders, and organizations. It's about managing energy and focus while not killing the dream. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Scaling Startups. I am thrilled to be here with three of my favorite leaders: John Foraker, co-founder and CEO of Once Upon a Farm; Katie Marston, Chief Marketing Officer of Once Upon a Farm; and Cheryl Van Valkenburg, Chief Sales Officer of Once Upon a Farm. Hi, guys. Good to see you. So John is co-founder and CEO of Once Upon a Farm. While the father of four, he was raised in a conventional farming family. He went in to study agricultural economics at UC Davis and attended business school at UC Berkeley. He became fixated on consumer goods and the natural organic food movement. After helping launch an infused oil company that invested in Annie's, which was at the time a natural mac and cheese company, John became CEO of the company and shifted its mission toward bringing organic foods from niche to mainstream in the U.S. After the company went public, Annie's was acquired by General Mills, where John consulted for the company's organic food organization. Eager to invest in another food company, he discovered Once Upon a Farm, which was alone in its mission to distribute fresh, organic baby food. He signed on as co-founder in 2017, continuing to drive purpose around healthy and clean food access for babies. In the last 7 years, Once Upon a Farm has been groundbreaking in the industry, expanding the portfolio to exceed expectations in delivering nutritional, superior meals and snacks for babies to big kids across the store and with their own robust DTC subscription service. This $100 million company leads in the creation of fresh snacking sets at key retailers and continues to increase expectations in the baby aisle with their own coolers, aiding in their mission of driving systemic improvements in childhood nutrition. What a mission statement, right? What a story. John, just would love to hear your journey and what you believe has contributed to O-Farm. Like, what's gone on here?
Well, it's been a crazy journey, and it's gone from a really exciting little company with big dreams to a rapidly growing, quite a bit bigger company 7 years later since I joined with Jen Garner in late 2017. And I think the most interesting thing is how this business has grown from kind of its earliest entrepreneurial days, where you have a very small number of people kind of doing everything, into, a really a highly functionally capable, best in class consumer products firm that is facing up with the biggest, most important retailers in the country and driving big change in nutrition against our mission. So it's been a real evolution and lots of change over that time, and been very exciting.
Yeah, so, a lot of us talk about growth in companies, but also growth personally and what we experience and how it defines our futures. And I think the best leaders, and you're such a good example of this, do a really great job about looking back at their past and reconciling what they did well and what they could have done better as they jump into a new venture. So can you maybe describe a little bit about what you believe you've done a bit differently here at O-Farm than maybe previous positions?
So many things. I've made so many mistakes and have tried to learn from them over time. A few things that stand out to me. One is I'm a real believer in marketing. Katie loves that. She'll talk about that later. And we've approached that much with a much bigger mindset and a much more modern approach than we did at my prior company, Annie's. We focused on our core products here for many, many years before expanding into other categories. That is a major difference from what me and the team did at Annie's. I learned a lot about that, and we've made that change. And then the third thing that really stands out to me is the approach we've taken to human capital development and talent development. At Annie's, in that time frame, my mindset was like, smaller companies don't really have the ability to develop talent. Let's go find experienced talent that come from big companies and just bring them in. We can't really invest in that. And while we've obviously gone and hired, people with lots of experience here into Once Upon a Farm, the mindset has been much more aggressively focused on let's get the best talent we possibly can and let's really develop it. And not only the broad team, but myself. My I've really invested a lot of time and energy in developing and changing my leadership style to be much more effective. And so it's a real commitment to that I think will probably come out in this conversation that has been probably the biggest differentiator for us in unleashing the power of our talent.
Yeah, I personally have worked with your team and witnessed the change over the last year, just the evolution and the elevation of the thinking and the problems you're solving and the ability to empower those below you, which I think has been pretty incredible. So, a lot of our listeners are trying to figure out at what point do we invest? If we do, is there really an ROI to this, right? Does leadership development and coaching and the kind of softer stuff, does it really impact the bottom line? How would you answer that question?
Oh, just without question. I mean, and there are so many ways. There are so many ways to measure it from the most macro, which is like, how is the business actually performing? Are we growing faster than our competition? Are we, improving our benchmarks around profitability and up against the peer groups that we compete against? But then, narrowing it down to like, how strong is our culture? How is our employee engagement? How is our turnover and retention? All those things are very directly impacted by investments that companies make in their people and systems to unleash talent. And I think, in this world where there's always a quest for like an easy way to calculate ROI, very often I think the best investments are missed because, I can create correlation between the investments we're making in our people and the fact that our business is growing at such a fast rate and we're executing so much faster than our competition and at such better higher degrees of effectiveness and competitiveness. Can I draw an exactly tight, straight line between that, like I could on a digital ad that might get a click through of X versus Y? No, but I can tell you that there's no question that we wouldn't be performing this way if we didn't have the best talent and we're investing in unleashing their capabilities. I have no question about that.
Oh, it's great to hear. So when I first met you and we were talking about leadership development and I asked, what did you really want to get out of the experience? You said, I really want to develop enterprise leaders, leaders that lead the organization with full empowerment across the organization and do that in a way that allows us to have velocity. And so, as you've now we're going through a second cohort, what have you noticed about these leaders? How have they changed? What behaviors have you observed? And how are they now interacting downward?
They're thinking about the business more strategically. They're more confident in their own leadership capabilities and skills, and understand that we're expecting them to make decisions and to, in effect, like do more of what a company needs to do versus thinking about it in the context of the most senior leadership layer in the organization making all the decisions. We're actually, empowering them to lead. And we're seeing that the collaboration across the people that have been through these cohorts is incredible. They've developed a lot of trust with each other, which is a huge thing. Going through this very, you have to commit yourself and you have to be vulnerable and with each other through the work. And as a result of that, they have real trusting relationships. And you think about like an organization like ours that'll be over 100 people by the end of this year. And you've got a very strong leadership team. I think that, we're a work in process too. We're continuing to work at that all the time. However, then you've got this next layer down and you think about like real superstars in each of the functions, the next layer down, taking on more and more, and then another cohort coming behind them. Same thing. It's really going to be enabling for the organization as we scale. And we're talking about going from, the business will finish this year with a consumption run rate around 250. That's probably double where it was 18 months ago or less. And it'll probably do that again over the next 18 months. And you think about all the execution that has to happen in an organization to enable that and to move really fast, which is a superpower of small entrepreneurial companies. And we don't want to get slow as we get big. And so it requires us to have these empowered, confident leaders in the organization making decisions. And candidly, the more they do, the less I have to do. I love that. And the same with our functional team. My team with Katie and Cheryl, who are incredible, but they can't do it all themselves either. They have incredible people on their team, and we need to push it down and empower them, give them the tools and support to be able to grow in their careers and into this big opportunity.
So I've, firsthand experienced the culture of Once Upon a Farm, and I am a firm believer that culture drives success and performance. Tell us about the culture that you've created and how that's benefited the growth of the company.
Well, the culture, in some ways, it's very similar to what we built at Annie's. It's very purpose-driven. We have a very clear point of view for what we want to do in the world. And in our case, it's basically driving, systemic improvements in childhood nutrition for a happier, healthier, and more equitable world. And that's really clear. People can understand it, and they know that the work that we're doing here links very directly to positive impact that they can make on that. So that's a very, very similar thing to what we did at Annie's, which was very empowering. And what we've tried to do is we've tried to imbue that through the organization in all the work that we do, and we've tried to build a culture that honors and respects that and attracts talent that's interested in doing that kind of work, while also being very competitive company and winning in our markets. And but it's a never, building culture is something that's never done. It's a continuous journey, and as the organization gets bigger and bigger and grows, you have to continue to fertilize that and think about ways that you can imbue culture as you get bigger so that it stays as relevant and fresh as it ever has. And I'd say we're doing a really great job of that, but we just need to keep at it because it's one of the most important things.
Yeah, I think that's really key. And I also just want to say that I have witnessed and observed the engagement of your employees to be higher than most that I've worked with. And, people talk a lot today about burnout. People are burning out, they're tired, et cetera. And my belief system is that when people are purposeful and feel part of something really terrific and game changing and changing and impacting society, they are committed. They perform, they outperform actually. And I think that's a big part of your secret sauce in my experience, having worked with quite a few people in the organization, is there is a definite feeling that people go to work every day knowing they're making a difference. And I just applaud all three of you for that, because you're all part of that culture, and it's been really beautiful to watch. Final question for you, John, before I move to Cheryl and Katie is, we talk about this word scale, and you talked about the word velocity, and there's a tension around executing today while still being a product innovator. I mean, you are innovative in what you bring to the world. What is your learning there? How do you do that effectively? How do you have a foot in execution and driving that while also still remaining innovative? What's the secret there?
Well, I think it goes to a lot of the things that we've already kind of alluded to, which is hiring the best talent, investing in them. Like if you think of what is a CEO or even the leadership team, the top leadership team's role in execution relative to the broader organization and what we're doing. I mean, in my definition is like, in my role, if I'm doing it right, I'm spending at least half my time thinking 2 or 3 years ahead. And each of our functional leaders plays a role in that too. It may not be 50%, but it's a significant chunk of their time. They have to be looking ahead and thinking about what are we trying to do here? Where are we taking this brand? Where are the best opportunities for us? And in order for them to do that, they need to have the organizations under them firing on all cylinders on incredible, impeccable execution today, so that we're delivering against our current goals. So it's just stretching the planning horizon strategically. So we're thinking far enough forward that we can make the investments and make the bets, but while executing great today. And then the last piece is really a cultural one. I think that is something you see in a lot of really big companies is risk aversion, and they get really conservative. The bigger and more successful they get, the more conservative they get, and you have to bake that into your culture, that you have to be willing to take risks and fail and actually celebrate the failure as a learning opportunity, and support your people who make a good effort and fail. And in lots of organizations, especially as they get bigger, that's hard to do because people's career plans are impacted and all that. So I would say that's the way we're doing it, and we just need to stay committed to that mindset. It's the kind of emerging brand disruptive leadership mindset you have to have. You have to be willing to make bets and take risks and go, and then be confident that you're not going to get them all right, but that's okay. It's part of the culture, and we're going to really do the best we can by taking that approach.
And so based on this, John, what do you see is next for OFARM?
Lots more great products. Lots of consumers are still not aware of us. And Katie and Cheryl are doing unbelievable work to make more consumers aware of them, drive trial. Cheryl and her team are just getting the products into retailers right in front of consumers all over the place, which those two things work hand in hand. And so I think it's a lot of growth. It's a lot more impact. There's so many more things that this company can do to drive the change that's baked into our mission. And I feel like we're really just starting, honestly.
Yeah, it's exciting. So I want to now talk to Cheryl. So Cheryl, you and I have had the opportunity to work together and really have enjoyed that process. And so wanted to just dig in a little bit into your own, a little bit about your role and your journey, your leadership journey at OFARM.
Sure. So yes, I'm the head of sales here at Once Upon a Farm, and I'm directly responsible for the team that executes our retail sales plan and the success in retail. So that I oversee the account teams, category teams, and the business development team. So that's a lot what I do. My journey here has been amazing. My background is all CPG, 28 years in CPG. And what's interesting about my background is I've held 15 different leadership roles in my career. And every time I moved to a new team, I got the chance to start over, which was awesome. So I have so much experience that I am able to apply here at Once Upon a Farm, because leadership is really about stacking your experiences one on top of each other, which is amazing. What's also interesting and unique is every team I've led was anywhere from 12, 18 to 24 months. So here at Once Upon a Farm, I'm actually going to hit my 5-year mark where I'm leading a team for 5 years. So that's also unique, which is awesome. And I'm excited for many more years to come. But two things that I've learned in my career that I really brought here to Once Upon a Farm that I think really resonates, because John and the rest of the team feel the same way, is a good team is built on trust. And trust is gained through transparency and reliability as a leader. And that is something from the top down that we push across the organization, which allows us to really move fast and trust each other. The second thing, which might be unique to me, but as a company, we have a really strong mission, vision, and value. But as a leader here, I like to set the tone for the team as well. And it's just something I learned through my career. And on the sales team, I let them all know how I like to be, how I like to feel, and how I like to treat them. And the tone I set as an example is I tell them all that I like to feel valued and appreciated and compensated fairly, and I will treat all of them the same way. And that sets the tone from day one, which is also awesome. So it's been a fun ride, and I'm really excited about what's to come.
So tell us a little bit about your own development. You went through coaching, you've experienced it. What impact did that have on you? And also, what impact did that have on your team?
Oh, it's amazing. first of all, you're incredible, Irene, as my coach, and I just want to thank you for that, and John for supporting me on this journey. Once Upon a Farm has been growing tremendously. Katie and I started, and it was a $19 million business. And as John mentioned, we're on a trajectory now by the end of this year to be forward looking at 250 million and then doubling that year over year. So every time you move through the stages of growth, you've got to, as a leader, have to elevate along with that. And one of the biggest things that I learned through coaching is truly how to empower your team. And you and I worked on that a lot together. How do you actually empower and enable your team to grow? And the two things that worked for me that we worked on together, Irene, was first identifying your roles and responsibilities, and then also what is your team's roles and responsibilities. And the second thing that I did is I talked to my team about when to involve me in decision making, when to inform me, and when to consult me. And what I learned out of that exercise is, first, I was involved in way too many decisions. And it was really holding me back from doing the job that I just outlined to my whole team that I wanted to be doing and where they actually need me on the business. So that was the first thing. So I was being consulted for 75% of the decisions, and I needed to flip that to just being informed on 75% of the decisions. And what was an unintended consequence and just a beautiful thing that happened, and what I learned, is that the people underneath me were very motivated because their decisions were supported and respected. And once they had this authority to make these decisions and they knew I was going to support and respect their decisions, they all just rose to the occasion, and that was unbelievable. And the last thing I'll say through coaching is I worked on this with myself, I worked on this with my team, but one of the reasons why I think it worked well is because of our level of trust as an organization, and the feedback loop has to be really strong. They need to check you, and I need to check them as we're on this journey. But everyone rose to the occasion, and it was unbelievable.
Well, I appreciate everything you've shared, and I think you're right. I think your ability to be really, really clear about your role and the role of those on your team and what that actually meant on a day-to-day, like these are the tasks I do, these are the things you do, and how we're going to work through this was exceptional. I also think there's another layer to this. You know, a lot of times I'll work with organizations and they want me to come in and work with their people, but they don't align at the top first. And I think, John, you really set the tone for that. I mean, we spent a really good amount of time figuring out together what you wanted from this experience for your people. And also we spent a great deal of time talking about your strategy. And if there's something I would tell any new client that we're talking to is do what O-Farm did. Like, we spent a few good sessions just honing in on clarity of the alignment with leadership development and the strategy. Because if somebody working with you is not aligned with your strategy, they can actually hurt you more than they can help you. And you all really dug into that with me. So I just saw that back and forth, that dialogue, that communication work really well between you, your people going through the cohort, the strategy, the execution plan. I mean, I feel so close to the work you're trying to do that it enabled our team to do a much better job. So thank you for that. And Cheryl, to your point, I think that back and forth communication really does enable a lot of good work to be done. How have you changed as a person, Cheryl? If I were to ask you that question.
It's a loaded question, Irene, but it's a good one.
You know I have to go there.
I know. Three things come to mind. The first is through the coaching, and you mentioned this earlier too, but you really helped me understand how to manage burnout for myself and my team. And that was just something that was incredible. And the culture here also allows you to manage burnout because we're very flexible as an organization. You can do the work from wherever you want, when you want, how you want. And so that flexible work environment helps you quite a bit in managing your time and your progress towards your goals. And then enabling and empowering my team gave me space to then work on myself and not be burning out. So that was the first thing, is managing burnout. The second thing is I got a greater sense of awareness about myself, how I intended to come across to people and how I was actually being perceived. And there was a gap there. And so worked on some communication tactics that allowed me to really make sure that my intentions are being communicated properly. And that was not just with my coworkers, my employees, but also even with my family and friends.
That's great.
And the third thing that you helped me with specifically and is really managing my energy and my empathy. I tell you, when you have a lot of energy and a lot of empathy, you have to manage a lot of big feelings, not just for
Yes.
yourself, but others. And by having a lot of trust and transparency with the people here at O Farm, I can feel all of their feelings. And I have a high level of care and concern for people. So you also taught me how to shield myself a bit. So I can listen, but I can allow things to roll off of me and it won't drain my battery.
Yeah.
And how it's changed me, I will say this, the result is I'm healthier, I'm happier, and I'm way more balanced.
Yeah.
And so it's
Oh,
been great.
that's such a testimony to you and just your courage walking into this too. I know it can be really hard to look at yourself, and you did so much of that work. So thank you for being here, for sharing so intimately with vulnerability. And I know that's just who you are. And from empath to empath, it's rough to be a high social energy like we are, but it's gift, right? It's managing the gift all the time. So thank you for everything. Your words were really powerful. Katie, we're going to move to you. Tell us a little bit about your role at O Farm and a little bit about your journey.
Irene, getting to talk to you about this for one is so exciting because our journey has been so many years together now. But I am Katie Marston. I'm the CMO of Once Upon a Farm. I'm in charge of marketing, brand, and growth, and have, just like Cheryl and I actually started, which is crazy, within a few months of each other, as she had mentioned. So almost hitting 5 years. And the difference being, and where I really am so grateful to John, is he took a chance on a super non-traditional, I am not a long-term CPG marketer. I was going to always cause him some headaches and come with outside the box ideas, but I'm so grateful for that because I think a lot of people would have wanted to, starting out, go much more traditional CPG marketer, and he took a real chance, which I've loved.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So tell us about your leadership journey. What has that been like for you? You know, obviously coming here, non-traditional background, lots of change, lots of growth. What have you experienced going through all of this?
Yeah, as I said, my background is varied in that I spent 12 years with sports brand Adidas, internationally and domestically, and started leading teams at a relatively young age that were, across a variety of different cultures and personality types before having my own company, where it was like indirect management and leadership with professional athletes and their personal brands before getting back on that brand side to a very female heavy powerhouse jewelry brand, Kendra Scott, and then Brew Dr. Kombucha before coming to Once Upon a Farm. And while I had participated in leadership development early on in my career, what I realized is that leadership it's a muscle. Like, you flex it every day, but you also have to work on it. And when you go for a very long time without necessarily working on it, what your style was, for instance, at a type of company like Adidas is very different from that at Once Upon a Farm. And so, I had my own development, which is how you and I got connected. I had my own development work that I wanted to do to be at my best for our team here, which is what they deserved in order for us to have the best chance of success.
Yeah, and you dove right in, and it's funny. You were the first person that I met at Once Upon a Farm, and it was a little bit like I wasn't sure if this was going to work out. I mean, to be honest, I was like, she's a strong personality. Like, is this really going to be for her? And then it ended up being this beautiful relationship. So tell us a little bit about, your thoughts originally when we met, what was on your mind, and how coaching has impacted you.
Yeah. I mean, for one, I did a lot of research to find you and asked a lot of people in the industry, and your name kept popping up as the one. And what I would suggest for everybody is do the interviews. And it was very apparent. Like, I met with a couple different ones, and you and I connected right away. It's a humbling experience. Like, as Cheryl says, you take the only way I guess you'll get anything out of it is to take a real hard look at yourself and understand and be open to true areas of development and put the work in. And for me, like, I am a strong personality, and a lot of my success came from maybe I shouldn't even say maybe, bulldozing really, really great initiatives through, and realizing that, I had to get things done and help that. And it's not that through working with you, it was about how do I take some of those benefits of being results driven, but add the empathy and the acknowledgement that all teams are different, and the empowerment of a team to take risks and learn from successes and failures on their own to showcase their best selves for the organization's mission.
Yeah, for sure. So I've worked with your team members now for a while. What are you noticing with your team? What has changed? How are they growing?
Sometimes it takes an outside person to help them recognize their own potential, take them out of the situation, and really unleash any sort of ceiling that they have maybe even put on themselves and watch them shine. That is what I have seen just within our own team members, of going beyond. What's fun for me is watching them go beyond the expectations that they may have had for themselves and really be cross-departmental enterprise leaders that are thinking in the now, in the future, for the business and for their teams. And at the end of the day, for us, anyone within our space, the most important is for the consumer. And so wrapping up all of those and thinking that way with short and long-term planning has been probably one of the best outcomes that I've seen through the work that's been done.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that what's so fascinating to me is we do a lot of work that's more holistic in nature. So when we focus on coaching and development, we focus on the person that just happens to go to work and also happens to be a parent and also happens to be a mom or dad or happens to be a spouse or a boyfriend or et cetera. So it's like we live in these different petri dishes of life. And in the past, I think we always looked at coaching as like a business issue. But now, because of everything that's happened, remote work, our relationships, we work and we're just all in the same petri dish, right? And so, one of the things that I love about Once Upon a Farm is the people. And I'm not sure the secret sauce magic that you're using to bring in these people, other than that whole value culture thing that you're working on and that you continue to strive for. But there's just this is a special place. It's a very, very special place. And so I'd ask any of you, all three of you, like, how are you going to maintain the special place while you're growing at this clip?
Well, I think of the two things, and I'll just go first. I think one, having a remote environment, and then also the benefits that support all of our employees and at whatever life stage that they are in. We have very generous benefits, and then we have chosen to be remote. But it is also that development that started at the top and the investment, because a lot of companies either don't do it, as John said, because they think that they're too small. They're not. Or they start and they do it for the lower tiers of the organization without fixing and investing in the top before going down, which is, I think, the most efficient and impact generating way to do it. And that in itself has created a culture that shows we invest not only in them, but we invest in being better for them.
I love that. Other thoughts, John or Cheryl?
Cheryl?
One
Irene?
thing I would just add to that is the common thread through our organization is the mission. And it has been the experience of my leadership career, the best experience ever, to lead a team of employees that are all motivated and aligned to the same mission. And that is really the key to success.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So true.
that's a good one. The thing I would add is, I think the experience that we've all been talking about, we've been at prior companies, we've learned, this team has learned and developed and grown. My what I call like my team one, which is the direct team that I work with every day, and we've grown so much together, and we're still a work in process. Like, we can absolutely do better and will, but it's really like really focusing on that and understanding that, no matter how much success we have together or the organization has together, we have the humility to understand that we're still making a small difference, and we want to make a much bigger difference, and we're going to want to really grow and impact the world in a positive way together. And I think, too often, I think companies like try to sell themselves as like beyond what they actually really are. They're, we're perfect. We're this model of that looks great on paper, but when they really peel it back, you see they're not nearly as good as they think they are. Well, we're here to tell you, like, we think we're really good, but we can be way better, and we're going to be way better because we're bringing in and hiring the best possible talent you can find. We're empowering them to grow themselves. We're holding ourselves accountable to grow so that we can be better leaders, and we're going to go make a big difference together. And I think that like transparency and honesty is very appealing to people who are looking for a place to work. And as Katie alluded to, like, we don't care where you live. Like, you can work for a company like this, and you can be doing it in whatever place, and probably internationally eventually, although we don't have much of that now. It's mostly, North America and the US. But like, I think that's a really rare thing to find, the combination of that kind of company and that kind of flexibility in our space. And so I think that gives us a big advantage.
Huge advantage. And you summarize it beautifully. I think the words that this executive team, your executive team, brought to me in the very beginning was, we're always going to stay humble, and John, that comes straight from you. Like, you are the smartest person I've ever met, I think, and the most humble human I've ever met. And
Stop.
well, it's really hard to find. I mean, I work with lots of senior leaders, and it's very rare that I see a senior, leader, a CEO who's leading with empathy, humility, and just happens to be wicked smart. Like, you just don't get all that in one person. So that's a huge one. I also think growth mindset came up a lot. Like, we never want to stop pushing ourselves to be better. And the other thing was, let's be curious, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the exercises we did was, these business cases where we had your teams go out and you gave them a really hard problem to solve that was way out there, and come back and like, let's test it and see if we can do it. And I had this beautiful moment where they all came back to you and said, this is really out there, John. Like, we don't think we should, double down on this and spend all our energy and resources on it. And you're like, yes, I agree. But I see this little thread over here where we can connect the dot for just one of these pockets of the consumer market. And it right there was you. It was like, we're going to keep doing what we're doing, but we could take this information and just do a little bit better over there and make a difference, and think of how much we can affect the lives of those people. I will never forget that day, because that was the epitome of OFARM for me. That was you in a nutshell. And so I just want to thank all of you for leading this company to greatness, for changing people's lives, for helping. I mean, I have a grandson, and we, have OFARM all over the house, and we love that we know we don't have to worry about what we feed him. And you're changing people's bodies. I mean, we know that food that is healthy, that is sustainable, that is organic feeds the brain. It feeds bones differently and bodies differently, and we need our children to be healthy and safe. And you're providing that to the world. So thank you so much for being here, for being in my life, for participating today in this, and being willing to chat with the world. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I know we'll talk again soon. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
For more information on how we can support you and your organization for coaching and leadership development, visit us at leadershipadvisorygroup.com.